So The Imperfects is a really great new show, and it does enough to set itself apart in the very overcrowded supernatural superhero space, but you just leave this show thinking that they could have just done so much more. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Lifestyle Critic. I hope you're having a brilliant day. So in this video, we are going to be reviewing Netflix's brand new show, The Imperfects, which is a science fiction supernatural superhero coming of age storyline that explores what would happen when a group of young adults get transformed into monsters. Now, this is such a brilliant premise and it has so much potential. And you know, this series was really enjoyable. I was definitely hooked across the 10 episode run, but it just went down annoyingly the really cliche and overdone and overused traditional evil scientist route and the rebellion that these young kids have to do. I just feel like it's been done so much. But you know, the series is really enjoyable and I'm going to be breaking it all down for you in this video, along with explaining the ending as well as looking what would happen in season 2. And there is an aggressive desire to create a second season, as the final few moments of this season are super epic, and I'm going to be breaking all of that down and more for you in this series review. So the premise of this show is that three 20-somethings' lives get completely changed when they undergo gene therapy and get transformed into monsters, a banshee, a chupacabra, and a succubus, and they then go on a hunt to try and find the scientists responsible for this to try to transform them back into humans, and they also enlist the help of another scientist along the way, along with finding a lot of other monsters and a lot of other groups as well. Now, from a positive point of view, I really loved all of the twists and turns. I feel like in every single episode something new was happening. It always ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, and you're really incentivized to just binge through this entire series. And I love the dynamic between the three leads. They don't know each other at all. They've only seen each other every now and again when they have to go get their medication. And I really love the growing friendship and the growing relationships between these three characters, as well as all of the other characters as well. But I feel like these three lead the show really well. And there is a lot of science happening, but along with that, you do get to see a lot of powers taking place as well, which is really cool. I also love the impact that this has on their other friendships and their other relationships as well, and the struggle that they have to contend with, as of course their main priority is to try and find a cure, but the impact of this is obviously going to have a cost on their previous lives and their previous relationships, and I feel like the show explores all of that really well. And then on top of that, all of these powers feel really foreign to them, of course, as they've never really seen anything like this, and the world has never seen anything like this as well. So they kind of feel really alone, and then they're kind of forced to build this friendship because the three of them are kind of in it together, which, like I said, definitely is the heart and soul of this series. And there was a little bit of betrayal happening along the way as well, however, from a negative point of view. Even though every single episode definitely did have a bit of a twist taking place, I feel like they could have just done so much more with all of those twists and turns. And also, even though there is a little bit of betrayal happening as well, again, they could have just done so much more with that and really pushed the knife in terms of really shocking things happening to these group of people. And like I said earlier on, I just feel like the scientific route has just been done so much, and they're just focused on it pretty much across all 10 episodes. What is happening from like a scientific point of view, the scientific cure. It just took over the series, and like I said, I feel like the premise was so good and they just definitely could have just done so much more with it. And of course, there's a lot of teen angst happening in this show as well. I mean, of course, that's going to take place given the fact that they are in their 20s, but I just feel like, you know, that and the scientific stuff just overtook a lot of the potential supernatural superhero things that they could have done. And they do introduce other groups and other monster characters, and I just wish that they would have focused on them a little bit more as well to really give this show a lot more edge. But like I said, I feel like they're definitely going to explore all of that and more in season 2. And my final complaint is that some of the visuals, all of the really cool stuff does happen off screen. So you really can feel the fact that they were on a pretty limited and restricted budget. So whilst it is a little bit of a shame, thankfully, it doesn't take away necessarily too much from the storyline, which is pretty decent from a storyline perspective. So episode 10 of The Imperfects is pretty dramatic and ends on an absolute cliffhanger and does make a lot of revelations as well. So firstly, they are thinking that some of them are fully cured, but there are going to be massive side effects. So for example, Abby finds herself in a bit of a cocoon, and Juan is now a bit of a hybrid of himself and the chupacabra as well. I can't wait to see what is going to happen next. This is going to be so interesting. And Tilda is now finally a singer as well, which I thought was such a nice full circle moment for that character, especially as she went through so much heartbreak and turmoil with having to give up that career. So I think it's so nice that she has now got that again. Abby is also in a full-time relationship with Hannah, and Juan is rebuilding his relationships with his family as well. And we also find out that the crooked company Flux, the head of that company, was actually in cahoots with a lot of mad scientists to create work for her company to then have to solve. So a really awful pharmaceutical company, and then this woman just gets removed from the company, and Sydney is now going to be the head of that space. And we also find out the biggest twist and revelation of all, that there is actually a true, real Dr. Alex out there, and the one that we know is actually a clone. I always thought that there was going to be so much more with the Sydney character. I thought that they were going to go another road of her stabbing the others in the back, but actually she was having her own mission in the background, which I think is really, really cool. And the beloved Finch persona is absolutely still alive and kicking, not transforming in the way that they were before, but they definitely can tap into each other's personality. And there are going to be loads more monsters created very recently as well by even more organizations, tapping into the genes of young adults as well. So I feel like the ending was definitely trying to get a second season commissioned. So speaking of a second season, I'm really, really excited about season 2, as I feel like hopefully they will shelve somewhat a lot of the scientific focus that the first season was suffocating by. So hopefully we can see brand new monster characters, which they were teasing. We can see a bit of a reunion taking place between Tilda, Abby and the Juan character, and then they can go hunting out and about for more monster characters. Hopefully they'll have a bigger budget this time around as well, so they can do even more superpower type stuff. I wonder if there's going to be more internal conflict as well between Sydney and Finch. Maybe they'll be trying to fight over who's going to be the dominant personality, and maybe Sydney is going to be a bit of an enemy to the core trio this time. Speaking of the trio, I can't wait to revisit them. I can't wait for them to be reunited, as they even did say themselves that they wouldn't normally have been friends if they weren't forced through the circumstances that they were in. So I feel like it's going to be really, really cool to kind of revisit that friendship. And of course it was on an absolute cliffhanger that Juan is now a bit of a hybrid between him and the Chupacabra as well, and Abby is finding herself in a bit of a cocoon-like state. So hopefully the second season will pick up exactly from those moments, and then we can see exactly what's going to happen next. And I absolutely love the fact that Tilda got to see herself in a comic book, as Juan is now a successful comic book writer. So hopefully that will be explored really, really well as well. And of course we're going to see a bit of a romantic connection finally taking place between Juan and Tilda. Of course, we have to talk about that Dr. Alex twist. So I feel like the real Dr. Alex, maybe he experimented on himself and now is in a state that he has a bit of an incurable disease. So the Sydney character is now going to try and find that. And I feel like it's going to be so interesting when Dr. Alex meets his other version, as their personalities seem to be really, really different. Maybe the Dr. Alex that we have been with across season 1, when he finds out the truth, he will feel really heartbroken, really rejected and really used. And maybe he'll kind of be disposed of after he has found the cure for his real alter ego, the prime Dr. Alex. I feel like that storyline just has so much potential. So I can't wait to see what on earth is going to happen in season 2. So from a cast and characters point of view, this series was actually really, really good. So let's go through all of the actors and characters one by one. So first up, we have the awesome Tilda. Even though it definitely was a bit of a trio that were leading this show, I feel like out of all of them, Tilda slightly felt like the main character. She was just an excellent performer. I feel like she literally gave her everything, both the actress and the character. And I thought her power set was really, really cool. It was really, really funny how both Juan and Abby were really jealous in a bit of a humorous way of her awesome powers. In terms of from a performance point of view, she reminded me a lot of Emma Dumont from The Gifted. Very similar character to Polaris. Maybe not from a moveset point of view, but definitely from a perspective of being really, really independent, definitely speaking her mind, being a true badass, being absolutely free-spirited, and being really passionate as well. And having a pure heart of gold while still having that rebellious streak. So I feel like Tilda was such a wicked character. Juan definitely was the young kid of the pack, and they definitely tapped into this a lot. But I feel like he also was pretty mature for his age. And he has gone through so much from his personal life as well, and feels really ostracized from his brother, and I feel like you can really feel the weight of that on this character. And it was really interesting when he did kind of go back to his brother, and his brother was really accepting of him, but then his brother then shunned him out again. I feel like it was pretty harsh to do that, but in the final few moments we did see that he is kind of rebuilding that once again. I don't feel like he valued his ex or his relationship that much at all, as he was so quick to just be attracted to Tilda. And I feel like he did treat his ex in a pretty disrespectful way. The Chupacabra definitely was the muscle whenever they needed it, and I thought it was really realistic how he's growing in his ability to channel it, a little bit similar like the Hulk, and learn how to control it as the series was progressing. And at the start of the show, he definitely felt like it was a bit of a curse, but then he did begin to value it. But then it was really gutting when he did kind of give up the power and then it came back right at the end. So definitely a bit of a whirlwind journey between him and the Chupacabra, and I love the fact that he is a passionate comic book writer, and they also reference Marvel and DC in the first episode, and by the end of episode 10, he is an accomplished and successful comic book writer, so I feel like the one character just brought so much. And then we have Abby, who I have to say is pretty one-dimensional. I feel like out of the three of them, she is the least developed. She is a pure scientist. I did like the fact when they were exploring, you know, this character is pretty judgmental and hypocritical, and Tilda definitely wasn't afraid to really speak her mind about this. And Abby's got such a wicked power as she is able to control people, and she definitely feels the conflict of this. If there is a second season commissioned, I hope she does use this a lot more, and maybe even if the power grows a lot more as well. And I thought her relationship with Hannah was really, really believable as well. And we also have Italia Ricci as the awesome Sydney character. At first, I also thought that this character is pretty one-dimensional, not that layered. But as the series was progressing, this character absolutely became front and center. And I loved how complex she was. I feel like instantly when we saw the episode on that cliffhanger moment, when we discovered that Isabella Finch is just the other side of the Sydney character, this character just became so fascinating. Love that internal conflict. The final revelation with this character being underhand the whole time was so brilliant. All of the constant changes between Sydney and Isabel was really, really cool. And this character was just so much more complex. And I love the stealth sequence that she was having as well. And of course, she is the real life wife to Robbie Amell and just absolutely deserves to have her break. And I feel like this show really does show how brilliant she is. And finally, we also have Dr. Alex, who is the evil scientist who was masterminding everything and created the monsters in the first place. They did try to redeem this character somewhat, but then in the final couple of episodes, he really did show that that evil scientist hasn't gone anywhere. And just the way in which he thinks and the way in which he wants to execute his plans are just so twisted. And also, this character pretty much killed the Tilda character too. So it's really difficult to feel any sympathy for this character, but of course he had that final revelation, which was such a jaw-dropping moment. And so from a cast and characters point of view, I have to say the Imperfects is actually really, really awesome. So from a visuals point of view, I have to say the Imperfects is pretty average. They definitely cheaped out in a couple of moments. You can tell they are on a bit of a restricted and limited budget. As for example, a lot of the potential awesome sequences happen off screen. For example, some battle sequences taking place off screen, the transformations between Sydney and the Finch character and Juan and the Chupacabra. I mean, you do see the Chupacabra, which I feel like they probably spent a lot of money on. But other than that, a lot of stuff just takes place off screen, and it did get a little bit frustrating. And the fight sequences were just finished really, really quickly, as like I said, you can just tell that they are on a limited and restricted budget. But thankfully, I feel like the show doesn't look that cheap, and I feel like the budget that they did have, they definitely did make it look all really, really believable. They definitely used and reused a lot of the set pieces again, so hopefully in season 2, they'll get a bigger budget and they can go to even more locations, they can do bigger fight sequences, and finally, hopefully you can see some kind of transformations between all the different characters as well. So even though the limited budget did take you out of the experience on quite a number of occasions, I still feel like it was just about sufficient to enjoy the show. So from a comparisons point of view, as the Imperfects are definitely focusing on a bit of a superhero, supernatural space, there are so many movies and TV shows that you can definitely compare the Imperfects to. So for example, you can definitely compare it to the Vampire Diaries, to the New Mutants movie, to the Gifted, Doom Patrol, Titans, the Old Guard film, Inhumans, Heroes, Defenders, and I guess you can compare it to the Gifted and to the Runaways as well, but I absolutely loved the Runaways and the Gifted, so I don't think the Imperfects is as good as those two, but I would say, you know, this show is pretty average within this awesome genre. So overall, you know, there were definitely some issues with the Imperfects in terms of the storyline potential just could have been so much better. They could have gone to so many better locations, they could have spent a lot more money, and they could have just done more with the wider cast that they had. But, you know, all of that being said, I did really, really enjoy the show. I feel like all of the heart-driven relationships between all the different characters were really, really wicked. And as an origin series, I feel like the first season was really, really good. And it definitely did keep me hooked with all the different twists and turns taking place and all of the cliffhangers as well. And I'm just really, really excited for a potential second season. And so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give the first season of The Imperfects a solid 6.5 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear what you thought of this show, so please let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.